Yo, what's going on guys, it is Foxydude here and welcome back to a brand new video and another episode of the F1 journey. Today, we are going to be going ahead and having a look at how the teams and the drivers have been faring in the in-season test that has taken place here at Qatar. There have been lots of changes to quite a few of these cars, with significant new upgrade packages being brought here to this track in order to try and get as much data and information as they can before they crack on with the next set of races. The first 4 races in the Middle East have concluded, and these teams have got valuable data to use to help test these new upgrade packages. So let's go and see what they've gone ahead and brought to the table. The first thing that we're going to take a look at in this in-season test here at Qatar is Red Bull Racing. Red Bull have focused their attention on bringing a brand new front and rear suspension configuration to Qatar. Minor tweaks have also been made to the engine cover / the Coke bottle area as per the team's statement coming into this test. Red Bull have had a mixed start to this Formula 1 season. At the start of the year at round 1 in Bahrain, things looked promising for Red Bull. They were right at the very front, battling hard for the win, eventually missing out and finishing in 2nd place thanks to Sebastian Vettel. Move forward though into the next 2 races at Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia, it was a real wake-up call for Red Bull. It was clear that they were still missing something and they fell right down the order, especially in Jeddah where they couldn't get off the back row of the grid, in the hands of Vettel in that case. Perez managed to do some decent work in that race, but then come to Abu Dhabi and again they were way off the pace. But going in towards the race in Qatar, things look better for the team as they got a double points finish and a 2nd podium of the season, again thanks to Sebastian Vettel picking up P3, finishing just behind Tom and George Russell on that occasion. So why have Red Bull not gone ahead and made some serious changes to their car, knowing that they're in a little bit more of a scrap than they were last season? Well, Red Bull has said that they don't feel like they need a B-spec car. They feel like the car they've got is actually a very good platform, but the one thing that the 2 drivers were complaining about the most was the ride quality of this Red Bull. So by bringing in new front and rear suspensions, they feel like they can get a better ride out of the car in order to maximise their performances. Red Bull have said that they can run the car a little bit lower now thanks to the rear suspension changes, which is something that they'll be taking note of, and both Vettel and Perez were very happy with the work that has been put in to get this upgrade onto the car. Red Bull notched up plenty of laps throughout the course of this test and were very satisfied with proceedings. Now it's all about fine-tuning this car and getting it into the right setup window for the next set of races. What a fall from grace it has been for Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes have been the dominant team throughout the course of the previous 2 years and in this ground effect era. Starting in the 2 years ago when the ground effect regulations came into play, Mercedes-Benz dominated with their zero pods concept in the hands of Tom and Lewis Hamilton. They went on to win the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship, with Lewis Hamilton taking the Drivers' title. Fast forward a year later, and Tom was the man that was victorious in the World Championship, with Mercedes once again winning the Constructors' title. But this season is a complete contrast to that, with Mercedes-Benz currently sitting 7th in the Constructors' Championship and have only claimed 16 points in the opening 4 rounds of the season in the hands of Kimi Antonelli and Lewis Hamilton. There has been so much talk about Mercedes going away from the zero pods concept that gave them this dominant era. But Mercedes have constantly been adamant that the development cycle had been officially completed with the zero pod concept and that they got a massive advantage by going to that concept but couldn't build on it to allow them to stay clear. So going to the more conventional concept is the way forward for Mercedes, but at the moment it seems to be just a way backwards. So what have Mercedes done to try and get themselves forwards? Well, here at the test they've made a lot of significant changes to their car. The main characteristics that Mercedes have brought to this car is a brand new front wing and a brand new floor. There have been some other tweaks here and there to the car as well, particularly the rear wing to try and improve the airflow, but overall, the main areas to talk about is the front wing and the floor. Mercedes say that this is going to give them a lot more performance moving forwards, and Toto Wolff has said that Mercedes must perform with these upgrades that they put onto the car. There is now no more excuses. Both Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Antonelli were very happy with the upgrades that have been brought to the Mercedes, but of course with every other team bringing updates as well, it's about have Mercedes managed to find more than their competitors, and can Mercedes get back up to the front, or is it going to be another difficult set of races to come for the Brackley-based team? We now turn our attentions to Ferrari, and they have gone ahead and brought a B-spec car to this Qatar test. Now, while Red Bull felt like there wasn't any need for a B-spec car, Ferrari felt like there was. So what have Ferrari done? Well, pretty much everything really. A brand new floor, side pods, engine cover and rear wing have all been added to the car coming into this test. So why have Ferrari gone ahead and brought all of these raft of upgrades? Well, Ferrari so far, again, they've had a decent start to the season, with a couple of strong and competitive drives from Lando Norris in particular. Max Verstappen, on the other hand, has really struggled to get a grip of this Ferrari car and is being left behind in the championship. But Ferrari have admitted that they are in crisis mode, as they fear that they're going to need to win races very fast before a lot of changes are made. Ferrari are a team that live under pressure and are always in the spotlight, whether they're doing well or whether they're doing bad. Now, of course, last season, Ferrari failed to win a single Grand Prix. So, with the pressure on them, and obviously having a difficult start to this season with one driver, they really need to get their act together. So what has actually been done? Well, as we said, and I've noted all of the upgrades that have been added to the car, the new floor has enabled them to try and get a little bit more performance with some changes to the floor edge, and obviously some changes to the underbody that we're not going to be able to see. The side pod concept for Ferrari has completely changed. They have gone with a concept that McLaren and Red Bull have already adopted, which is the shark bite situation, or in other words, the overbite. Ferrari had initially done the undercut inlet for their side pods, but they decided to go to the overbite inlet that McLaren and Red Bull have adopted. They've made some changes to the engine cover to do a little bit more refinements in there and to make some changes to their cooling, and they've done a little bit of tweaking to the rear wing end plates. And this is all hopefully going to get them up the field. But the question is, how competitive were they in the test? Well, Ferrari initially had a lot of problems on day one of the test. They really couldn't get the car in the right working window, and it was again almost a really difficult situation. But come the second day of the test, some changes were made to the setups and to the overall ride quality of the car, and both drivers felt a lot happier. So hopefully we can see Ferrari get back up to the front very soon, where they rightfully belong. McLaren have had a very strong start to this season of Formula 1. So what have they done to try and keep themselves close to the front of the field once again? Well, they've gone ahead and brought themselves a brand new side pod configuration and a floor to Qatar. McLaren aim to make sure that they build on the platform that they have started this season with, and have tried to do that with these changes to their car to improve their overall efficiency. And so far, it seems to have gone quite well for them. Both drivers feel much happier with their car and feel they've got an even better balance than what they had before. The most important thing for McLaren, more so than actually getting extra performance out of these upgrades, is to help operate in the better working window for this car, opening it up to give them more options moving forwards. There is still one concern though that McLaren are very much keeping an eye on, and that is the durability. George Russell so far has won 2 Grand Prix this season, and that is tied with Tom, who's also won 2 Grand Prix this season. But the biggest concern has been on the engine side of things. At the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and round number 3, George Russell was in the fight for the race win until his engine gave way, and it was a concern for McLaren. There was also a concern at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix after some sensors failed within the power unit itself. Luckily they weren't important, and they were able to carry on their way. But they are still looking into this, as this could definitely hamper their charge going forward throughout the next set of races. This is exactly what happened to Sam last year, which was part of the downfall that McLaren suffered during that year. McLaren cannot afford a repeat of what happened then, and of course another driver falling out with their team. But at the moment, things are looking great, and McLaren had no issues throughout the course of the test, so were able to complete multiple laps. Aston Martin have joined Ferrari with a new B-spec car at the Qatar test. Changes have been made to the front wing, the side pods, the floor, and the engine cover. These are the most notable changes, but there are also some refinements in some other elements of the car as well. Despite a flying start to the season with Aston Martin's Tom leading the World Drivers' Championship and also Aston Martin leading the Constructors' Championship, they really felt like that they had to make these changes to their car in order to stay competitive. So what is the purpose of this? We've seen, like we've seen before, Red Bull have not made any major changes. So why would a team like Aston Martin, who are at the very top, make such a massive set of changes to their car whilst they were technically at the top of the field aka the fastest. Well, Aston Martin said that with the upgrades that they've put onto this car, it is not only going to unlock a better working window for this car, but also allow them to take more developmental paths in the future compared to what they had. Aston Martin genuinely felt like that if they stuck to the concept that they initially had at the start of the season, then they would really struggle to put better forms of upgrades on it moving forward when they did the more fine-tuning side of things. This was the key thing that twisted Aston Martin's motion towards a new set of upgrades. Sure, they could have gone ahead and just kept with the concept that they had, and they could have just gone ahead and made small subtle tweaks here and there. But they realised that by making these more subtle tweaks, it not only would narrow the working window even further, but in terms of then trying to fix things that start to go wrong, it would have just got a lot harder. Effectively, they were going headfirst into a cave that was just going to get tighter and tighter and tighter to the point where they were completely stuck. So to make sure they didn't do that, they had to make these changes. Now, both Tom and Oscar Piastri said that it was quite difficult to drive this Aston Martin throughout the course of the Qatar test. Reason being, because there was so much change to it. They said that they managed to get a lot of crucial information that they can use to make sure that things go smoothly for the next set of races to come. And it's something that Aston Martin are very much looking forward to. There was no signs of concerns or anything like that from any of the team personnel. They did exactly what they wanted to do from this test. Gather as much information as possible and get a better understanding of where to take this car moving forwards. If there was one way to sum up Porsche's season so far, it's gotta be defined as near misses. Porsche have definitely been very competitive at the start of this season, which can be different to what happened at the start of last season, where they were way off the pace before eventually putting in some upgrades onto the car to get them right at the front. Starting this season, they were still at the front, but there's definitely been some near misses. At the first round of the Bahrain Grand Prix, Rees eventually finished on the podium in P3, but definitely could have won that Grand Prix had things gone his way. They definitely also could have won at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, had things gone their way. They definitely could have won at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, had things gone their way. And guess what? They definitely could have won the Qatar Grand Prix, had things gone their way. There's been a lot of problems for this Porsche team, and the biggest problem that they had was their front wing. Well, guess what? They finally got their new front wing on the car for this Qatar test. So why has this become such a drama? Well, if you're unaware, Porsche entered pre-season testing with two specifications of front wing. Now, the front wing that they're running on the car here at the Qatar test, they also brought that to pre-season, but it was deemed illegal by the F1 GB, which stands for the F1 governing body, for anybody that is unaware. So they had to go ahead and send that back and start working on it again, as it was illegal with regards to the flexing of that front wing. They've gone ahead and made the refinements necessary and have brought it here to the Qatar test to go ahead and put it to its paces. This has actually been a very useful test for Porsche, as they've come out and said. By analysing the front wing here at the Qatar test, they can then take that, plus the Grand Prix weekend they've just had here at Qatar, to really get a proper understanding of the differences between the two front wings. Porsche say initially, things are looking good. But that's not the only wing that Porsche brought to this test. They also brought a brand new rear wing as well to this test to once again improve their performances. The other thing that Porsche have been having a little bit of a look at is the durability of this car back at base. Of course, Porsche, despite being at the front of the field, have definitely had some issues with reliability. So they've been having a look at that to see if there's anything they can do with the engine, potentially building in a couple of upgrades to the engine, but also making sure that it's more durable moving forwards, as they can't afford to have any issues if they're going to fight for the championship. If there's one thing that Renault needed here in Qatar that they couldn't get in pre-season, was a good test. And fortunately for them, that's exactly what they got. Back in pre-season, Renault had an absolutely shocking test with lots of unreliability, and they hardly completed any laps. Here in Qatar, things were a lot better. But that doesn't mean that the team back at France have been working flat out, not only to help with their upgrades they brought to this car, but also with their power unit. Of course, we've seen that Renault have got a very interesting power unit behind them. It's one that is extremely quick in the straights, but it's very unreliable. And we saw that not only at pre-season testing, but also at the Bahrain Grand Prix when they went ahead and had a double DNF due to engine failures. But then fast forward to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and Renault scored points. Go to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which is also another high-speed circuit, they scored points. But this comes to the fact that in Bahrain and in Qatar, which require a little bit more downforce on their cars, they were struggling to get anywhere near the points-paying positions. So what have Renault done to solve that element of their issues? Well, they've gone ahead and brought a new set of side pod inlets, new engine cover refinements, and a new rear wing. Now, all of these upgrades together have allowed them to get some valuable information, and straight away Renault could feel some positivity coming from the two drivers. They felt like they could attack more, especially in the medium speed corners, but there was still some concerns about the temperatures of their engines, which were starting to overheat. Now, while this is still a consistent problem for the team, it's one that they actually kind of wanted, because they wanted to try and figure out what was causing all of their problems. And as it turns out, as we've just seen in this testing, it was all down to just power unit overheating. So what can they do to fix that? Well, the engine cover hopefully will be something to help with that, as they've gone ahead and opened up the engine cover ever so slightly to allow for a little bit more space for their power unit to breathe. And with some more cooling inlets that they can put within those engine covers, it should allow for some better cooling. It will obviously come at the sacrifice of some downforce, but hopefully with the side pod inlet shape and a little bit of adjustments towards the rear of the car, they can put that all to bed. So, like I said, it's been a good start for Renault so far this season. Remember, last year they didn't actually score a single point. This year they've got 12 points and they're only 4 points behind Mercedes. So there's positivity within the French-based outfit. Now they've got to go ahead and put everything together, get their engine under control, and they've definitely got a decent car underneath them for the next set of races. Audi have definitely been a very puzzling team at the start of this Formula 1 season. While they were not really where they wanted to be at the very start of the year, Audi managed to fast-track a critical engine upgrade to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which everybody expected them to put them right at the front of the field and the team to beat. While they've definitely improved since having that engine upgrade, they certainly haven't been right at the front for teams to catch. In fact, Audi are still trying to do the chasing. So what's really been the problem? Well, Audi wanted this Qatar test to be about focusing on multiple different test programs that they wanted to run here at this track. They wanted to find out where the rear downforce issues were coming from. This has been the biggest problem for Audi throughout the course of the season, and it's something that Sam in particular has been screaming about. There is just not enough rear downforce in this car, but they say in terms of the numbers that there should be more. So once again we have an issue of correlation problems between what the simulation is saying and what the car is doing on the actual track itself. So what have they managed to find? Well, first things first, let's talk about the upgrades that Audi have brought to this test. They've gone ahead and made a couple of very minor changes to their engine cover, and they've also gone ahead and brought a brand new rear wing. Now, what they managed to find, which was crucial to this test and actually basically completed their primary objective, was that it was the rear wing specification that they had been running this season that was costing them the rear downforce performance. Now, what actually was the reason in terms of the rear wing itself that was costing that? Audi are not exactly going to be telling us that, because of course everybody else will potentially try and copy what Audi are up to. But they've now got a brand new rear wing onto the car, which they say is perfect for what they need, and Sam and Carlos Sainz definitely felt the benefits of this. So there's potential for them to move forwards now going ahead. They did also try and run a new diffuser throughout the course of this test, but they felt like that they needed to do a little bit more work with their rear wing rather than this diffuser. The diffuser is definitely a little bit of an upgrade for the team itself, and they've said that they will still be using this new diffuser, but the primary problem, which is the rear wing, has definitely allowed them to move in the right direction. Audi have also said that they're looking into their power unit. Despite making the engine upgrades, they definitely made a little bit of a mistake with that engine upgrade, especially with their ERS deployment system, and they're going ahead to try and work on bringing a new battery upgrade to the next round in Melbourne. Let's see if they can get that onto the car and if it can give them extra performance. Next, we turn our attention to Jaguar, and what have they been up to in this test? Well, they've been focusing primarily on a brand new engine cover that they have brought to this test. So why specifically have Jaguar only focused on bringing an engine cover? Surely a team that has not scored a point yet so far this season would try and do what some of the other teams have done on the grid and bring a B-spec car. Well, first things first, hearing from Fernando Alonso, the team principal at Jaguar, he has said that he first of all wants to see some progress with this new package. He's also said that the baseline of this Jaguar is actually very competitive, and after the first 4 races, they've managed to iron out the biggest weakness that this car has. It's simple, running the power unit too low. Well, it seems like a very simple fix then. Simply just turn up the wick of the power unit and off you go. You've got a rocket ship of a car. But they couldn't do that. The problem was the structure of the old engine cover that they had was too compressed, and it meant that they packed in the engine too close to the structure of the engine cover, and they didn't really give any form of allowance for the engine to breathe. So effectively, when they turned the car up in terms of their power, they were then running too hot, and then they had to lift and coast significantly in order to bring the engine temperatures down. So what Jaguar have done is they've reworked the engine cover, fortunately not having to make it too much wider than what it was before. They've also done some cooling restructuring within the engine cover as well in order to allow for some better airflow into the power unit to cool it down. This meant that they're now able to turn up the power unit a little bit more to give them that extra boost of speed on the straights. Jaguar have said that while they believe that this has definitely solved their problems, as they didn't see any engine temperature problems here in Qatar, which is a positive thing because while they weren't actually turning their power unit up to the max, obviously no one will, it's a test, this is crucial because they ran this test in the day, whereas the race was run at night. So the temperatures would have been hotter, and while they wouldn't have run their power units as high, it would have counteracted with the fact that we were running in the daylight. So this is definitely a step in the right direction, and there's going to be more fine-tuning to come for this car. And finally, the last team to look at in this test is Nico Rosberg's BMW. So what have BMW brought to the tables here in Qatar? They've gone ahead and brought a brand new underfloor and have also made some minor tweaks to their diffuser. So BMW have been, where Jaguar are actually, right down the bottom of the field. No points scored so far, and it's been a difficult start to proceedings for Nico Rosberg in BMW. But Rosberg has already come out and said that this was definitely going to be a difficult season for him already off the bat. With so many changes internally at BMW, it's going to take them time in order to get themselves restructured and going again to push for points moving into the future. The critical thing here was that while BMW have made changes to their floor and their diffuser, it's quite clear that they've been doing a lot of comparison work. Normally when teams bring a new floor, such as Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, Aston Martin that they've all brought to this test, they'd go ahead and not only bring the brand new floor, but they'd also obviously have tweaks to the floor edges. Critically, what BMW have done is they've brought a brand new underfloor, which is why we've had to specify it, but they've not brought changes to the floor edge. What BMW have said is that they need better airflow underneath the car, but the airflow coming off of the floor edges themselves was performing higher than what they initially expected, but the rest of the floor was not working. So they've gone ahead and taken the floor edges off of their old floor and put them onto this new floor, and it's definitely working nicely for them. They can definitely see an improvement in terms of the numbers in the simulations, and critically they're starting to get closer to full correlation with what the car is doing on the racetrack itself. They are still finding some issues here and there with the correlation side of things, but they're taking a step in the right direction with the numbers between the simulation and the on-track work getting closer towards each other. They just need to do some more fine-tuning and they will eventually get there. But BMW don't expect this upgrade to bring them right up to the front of the field and getting anywhere near the points, but they believe it's a step in the right direction on their journey that's going to take them some time to get back to the top of the F1 pile. So there you have it then. The testing in Formula 1 is done here at Qatar. The teams have brought lots of upgrades to their cars, a little bit of changes to some of the decals and some of the paint jobs of a few of these cars as well. Very, very subtle in that area, but they've managed to get all the information that they need and that they can take with them to the next set of races. If you guys have enjoyed today's video, feel free to drop it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well, and I'll catch you guys next time for the Australian Grand Prix, where we will see who's got all these upgrades right and who's got them wrong. Take care all, peace.